Hi.
Greetings all. We finally reached chapter 3 of the Finished Mystery. We're on page, 45? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the heading for this chapter is Wycliffe, Luther, and Russell. And we're also starting a new chapter in Revelation, which has to do, according to them, with a fellow called John Wycliffe. And in this first paragraph, we go straight to Wycliffe. There's no messing around with the first century here. We leap right over 13 centuries to the 14th century when John Wycliffe shows up. And you feel some affinity with this man, John Wycliffe, because he's a so-called reformer, and you think of yourselves in that great line. But more about that later, because we made the point last time that when you're talking about the church in Thyatira, you want to make some connection of you and Peter Waldo, but Waldo was not protesting all of the teachings of the church, or the major teachings of the church, but things that had come in the Middle Ages. So we'll see a similarity here. So we're going to read their description, which is made up of a quote from somebody called Edgar.
Yeah.
Who is this man Edgar? We'll get into that in a minute.
So the first sentence is just the Finished Mystery writing, and then this Edgar. But within it, he quotes two other people. So it is kind of tricky. You gotta be paying attention.
And again, this is ostensibly about the church in Sardis, but we leap right over the historical stuff to get to Wycliffe.
It's because everything, they're still in those epics that they put every angel to every church described in Revelation.
And this is therefore the fifth church, and therefore the fifth epoch of time, as they used to see things back in the days of Russell and Rutherford, anyway.
Okay, so the paragraph reads 3:1, and by the angel. The next important messenger to the church was John Wycliffe. And now they're quoting someone who says, it was in 1378 AD, the year of the great schism of the West, when two popes were elected, one in Rome and the other in Avignon,
yeah.
that Wycliffe came out as the great doctrinal reformer. Workman, in the book Dawn of the Reformation, writes, quote, Wycliffe's spiritual earnestness was shocked, his theory destroyed by the spectacle of two popes, each claiming to be the sole head of the church, each labeling the other as Antichrist. To Wycliffe, the year of the schism, 1378, was the crucial year of his life. He first urged that both popes should be set aside as having little in common with the Church of the Holy God. From this position of neutrality, he quickly passed into one of antagonism to the papacy itself.
Now that's all a quote from a historian that is a very, very well-known historian called Workman. But it's being quoted by Edgar, and we'll get to who he is in a minute. And now they go to Edgar goes to another quote.
In his medieval church history, Archbishop Trench says, then he quotes, the year 1378 marked the turning point in Wycliffe's career. Hitherto he had concerned himself with matters of mixed ecclesiastical and political import, but henceforth he devoted himself exclusively to doctrinal matters, and came out as the reformer. He began in earnest the translation of the Bible into English, and took the next decisive step by an open attack forced upon him by his studies of the Bible against transubstantiation.
Now that's all Trench.
Quote. Yeah.
And Trench, by the way, is the Archbishop Trench, who was one of the main players and given us the Oxford English Dictionary. So he's a recognized scholar, as Workman was. But now we go from the quotes back to Edgar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saying, Wycliffe thus attacked the very bulwark of Antichrist's stronghold. For the doctrine of transubstantiation, or the sacrifice of the Mass, annulled the true sacrifice of Christ. Because of this, the papal system became, in God's sight, the desolating abomination. Daniel 11:31.
So this conclusion is not Workman or Trench, it's Edgar. And what's the conclusion? The papal system is the desolating abomination. They taught that in the Finished Mystery, and for years afterwards, the Catholic Church, therefore, was irredeemably wicked because it was the desolating abomination. They've scrapped that one, needless to say, but here they're still upholding it. But then you might miss the point that what Wycliffe is protesting is not the major doctrines of Christianity. It's this new light that had come in the late Middle Ages. Transubstantiation, the new interpretation of the Lord's Supper, as Protestants tend to call it. And he even has a capital T on transubstantiation, that's Trench, to just show how official this doctrine was by now. That if you didn't hold to it by the time Wycliffe comes around, you were apostate. You were treated as a rank heretic and could even be executed. So that's what's being protested. It's not what you protest as a Jehovah's Witness.
So again, the Edgar. Who is the Edgar?
All right, Edgar. Well, it's not one man actually. It's two brothers, the Edgar brothers, who published these. The Great Pyramid Passages, volumes 1 and 2. My edition is 1923-24, so it's the revised edition. So who were these two brothers, the Edgar brothers? Well, they were close associates of Russell. Friends. So here you have him. You have him quoting from people who agree with him.
Yeah, personal friends.
And why is this offensive? Because you already know, if you're an ex-witness, that Russell is somehow connected to pyramidology. Piazzi Smith, we've done a video on this, which we'll link at the end.
Yeah.
We've already done that, but a lot of people know about that, but they don't know about the Edgar brothers.
And that book is called Pyramid Passages. So they were in agreement over certain things.
What were they using?
That's why he's quoting.
What were they using the passages for in those days?
Oh, they had it predicting the whole map of the future.
So the pyramid passages, measured in inches, were somehow indicative of the length of time from certain events to certain other events. So it's very interesting that just like in later editions of Russell's books, those inch measurements are changed because the time had gone by already. The Edgar brothers in these two volumes do the same thing. So the Edgars and Russell and Rutherford are all using the pyramid passages as a form of divination. Now, we all know that pyramidology's link is a form of occultism, but why is it? Because they're using it to divine the future.
Yeah.
And of course, when all the dates go by, including the dates that are adjusted in this as they were adjusted in Russell's books in later editions, when all the dates go by, then of course the pyramids suddenly disappear from the consciousness of witnesses. So I think we need to examine what it was that is being promoted in this book that you say, when Jesus Christ arrived in 1918, in 1919, he inspected this organization and gave them his approval and guided them. Yeah. Well, on what basis was he evaluating them? Based on the fact that they're doing what amounts to, they're performing and promoting, because these books were being sold by the Watchtowerr during this period.
Yeah,
you find them in the ads.
Order them from the Watchtowerr.
So on what basis was Jesus Christ evaluating them?
Yeah.
Not their ability to predict the future, that's for sure. Not their faithfulness to him, because Christendom was not generally promoting pyramidology or divination. Yeah, Christendom has a lot of faults, but promoting occult means of divining the future is not one of them.
So we're linking to one that you did about pyramid and Pleiades, JWs. Where's God? Russell says Pleiades. David, not this David.
You mean King David?
Says everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's based on Psalms 139.
Yeah. See you next time.